All right, everybody. Welcome to another leadership session. It's leadership session number 9. And today we are returning to our famed facilitator, Mr. John Maxwell, and his wonderful book, Everybody Communicates, Few Connect. Everybody Communicates, Few Connect. So we are on session 6, and we're going to cover session 6 and session 7 tonight. Connectors connect on common ground, and connectors do the hard work of making the complex simple. Connectors do the difficult work of keeping it simple. So we're going to be on 6, and we're going to be on 7 tonight. I am super excited. I'm glad that you all are joining us, both those of you who are present and those who may be watching this online. Thank you very much for being participants, and I hope that you are growing as much as we're growing here. So without further ado, let's open with a word of prayer, shall we? Father God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for watching over us and keeping us. We thank you for each and every person making their way out. We thank you for just this opportunity to discuss leadership, to learn to be more like Jesus, God. And Lord God, to learn how to be effective in our organizations, in our groups, and in our families. And if we have none of those, God, we thank you for the opportunity to lead ourselves. For Lord, you've given us ourselves at the very best to manage, and while that can be challenging sometimes, we know that with good leadership skills, we can do a good job of using all the gifts that you've given to us. So may we continue to be a blessing to the community, to every place that you place us, and may we do your will according to your will. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. So again, tonight, session 6 from the book Everyone Communicates, Few Connects by John Maxwell. Session 6 says, Connectors connect on common ground. Connectors connect on common ground. So this quote here says it's difficult to find common ground with others when the only person you're focused on is yourself. It's difficult to find common ground with others when the only person you are focused on is yourself. So what do you think about that?
That if you're trying to get others' attention, and all you want to do is say what you want to say, what you think is interesting, or what you want them to know, it's not going to work. You need to, express or teach or illustrate what it is that everybody would be interested in.
Okay, definitely. So I definitely agree that there's some good thought process and the idea that as a connector, as a leader, I want to know what everyone else is coming from so that I can connect with everyone else. And that's kind of the things that we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about how we find common ground with others so that we can be better connectors. Now you can imagine why this is important from a leadership perspective. Hi, welcome. Come on in, everybody. I think we might end up being short, so we may need to have an extra set of copies. Oh, we have 5 for tonight. That's okay.
Do you have an extra copy from last week if that would make it?
No, ma'am. But it's okay. Last week we didn't do this. We did
I think we did
quadrant 2 living. Yes, ma'am.
She talks about it. I would like to have it.
Yeah, so it's going to be online though. Y'all will be able to catch it. So shameless plug. If you missed last week, definitely go and see the quadrant 2 living video that's going to be posted. Should be posted tonight when I post this one as well for last week. So you'll be able to see that as well. But tonight we're coming from John Maxwell's book, Back on Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. And we're talking about connectors connect on common ground. Connectors connect on common ground. And so we were just really getting started here on page 16 at our quote that it's difficult to find common ground with others when the only person you're focused on is yourself. And Dr. Cook had volunteered first with the comments to share her thoughts on this quote and pointed out that if you're just focused on yourself, you're going to have a hard time connecting with others. I was expounding to just share that as leaders, right, it's important when you're trying to get your message across to the people who you're in charge of, your group, the person who you're trying to get to move somewhere, that you have developed some commonality with them, right? If, let's say, for example, I'm a millionaire and I come to talk to you about investing, but you barely make $25,000 a year, right? It's probably going to be difficult for you and I to have a common ground conversation. I'm going to be talking about interest and dividends and $10,000, $15,000 investments, and you're going to be talking about trying to keep the lights on in your house. It's likely that we're not going to have common ground, and then likely that we're not going to connect with each other.
And on the other hand, you might look at it, I might be interested in talking to, since you're a millionaire, come to me and I want to make sure, that might be a good thing. I
This is
might
true.
be ready to jump on board. You might tell me some way that I can jump on board.
Right, most definitely. As long as we start from a place of connection.
Uh-huh.
Right? If I can share with you that I
Right.
once upon a time was in your
Right,
shoes and that I had the same
Right,
shared experiences, you might want to
Got
hear
to
from me.
get that common.
Exactly.
narrative, you
But
see.
if I come from the mountaintop
Oh, yeah.
down with
Yeah,
that
then it's gonna
mindset
turn me
that,
off.
well, you know, listen, the only reason that you're only making $25,000 a year is because you don't work as
Right,
hard,
right.
well, then you and I are probably going to find a place of commonality
Right.
to begin started with. So we're going to talk about tonight the importance of connecting by finding common ground. And then in session 7, we're going to talk about how to keep the complex simple. All right? So he says here, I continue to work at learning, reading this opening paragraph, I continue to work at learning how others think and perceive the world. Is it possible that others might think and perceive the world differently? Yeah, definitely, right? We all,
This day and time.
right, so we get the generational differences, right, in that I see the world differently because I've lived longer or shorter, right? But we also get the differences based on the way I was raised. What are some other ways that we might perceive the world or see the world differently?
The environment we grew up in.
Okay, so the environment that we grew up in might influence the way we see and perceive the world. What else?
We were treated.
The way we were treated. Okay, exactly. So experiences that we've had or may currently be having might. So it's possible that a man and a woman might see the world differently, right? So our gender plays a role in determining how we see the world.
And our leadership can play a big role. That's what's happening now, the leadership.
Okay, so exactly. So the leadership in charge of us has a huge impact, right, on how we're going to think and perceive the world. Okay, and definitely I think that we see that today as relevant as usual, based on, again, our leadership. So he goes on to say, recently I read a book by Terry Felber called Am I Making Myself Clear? How many of us stop and ask that question? Like, we're communicating, do we think to ourselves, am I making myself clear? People understand what I'm saying.
You gotta learn to do that, and the only way you can do that is to say, after you speak a little while, you say, do you understand what I'm saying? Let me
Okay.
let me get your, you know.
Right, so we want to ask follow-up questions, right, to make sure everybody's still following, going with us, okay? But especially when we're thinking about what we're going to say in advance, maybe writing down notes and stuff, we want to make sure that we're making it clear. So Terry Felber says that many people have different representational systems based on the 5 senses that provide the primary basis for their thoughts and feelings. So this idea is that your way of seeing the world, whichever sense is most dominant, is going to affect your thoughts and your feelings. For example, if several people walk down the beach together, their recollections of the experience would be very different based on their representational system. One might remember how the sun felt on his or her skin and sand on their feet. Another might remember the look of the water and vivid colors of the sunset. The third might be able to describe the sounds of the ocean and birds, and another the smell of the salty air and tanning lotion of nearby sunbathers. Each of us creates a framework for the way we process information. Felber says, if you can learn to pinpoint how those around you experience the world and really try to experience the same world they do, you'll be amazed at how effective your communication will become. That's simply another way to look for common ground. So let's think about that just for a moment. So in this, he describes this picture of going down to the beach, walking down the beach. Which way would you remember it? Are you the one who might remember the look in water? Are you the one who might remember the sounds of it? Are you the one who might remember the feeling of the sun on your skin? Where do you fall in? Just take a minute and think about it just for a second. Where do you fall in that whole picture? And then if you'd like to share.
My other thing would be the sand on my feet.
Okay. You remember the sand on your feet? Okay. Okay, so you're walking down to the
Walking down to
beach.
the beach and I'm like standing, my feet together, that's what
All right, good stuff. Anybody else? Anybody remember the sound of the waves? Like, is that anybody?
That's what I don't know, because I love to hear the sound of water.
Okay.
I love to hear the birds and stuff.
Okay. Okay. Anybody? The colors of the sun reflecting off the water.
Color of water.
Color of the water. Okay. All right. So when I'm trying to connect with somebody, those are the things that I'm looking for, right? Both in how they remember and describe stuff. So if you're listening to somebody describe, maybe you ask them, you know, like, what are the things that you really want to accomplish in life? What are your dreams? You know, what kind of music do you listen to? What makes you cry? What makes your heart leap? The way they begin to describe it is the way that they process their world. And so those can become important things, because if I'm trying to connect, let's say that you're the kind of person who, I remember the sounds. A few people said they remember the sounds, right? So there's the sound of the waves, and there's the sound of the birds chirping, and there's the sound of the voices in the background, maybe the sound of little kids running and of course falling and crying and everything like that, right? We remember these sounds. So when I'm describing my vision, I've got to describe it to you in a way that right, utilizes what you've shown me is what is the way we communicate. So I might describe the sound of applause as people see you doing your thing. I might describe the sound of your impact in whatever way that is. The sound of silence that would fall over the crowd as your voice echoes through the chamber as you sing for his glory, right? I might describe the sound of applause as everybody stands to their feet, giving you a standing ovation for the great speech you just delivered. I might describe the sound of bellies being filled as people eat the food that you prepared. Like but I have to know you, right, well enough in order, and so I have to have, of course, found common ground in order for us to connect. So it's just a method. It's not the only method, but it's just, like you said, simply another way to look for common ground. So if that's the case, that's something we would want to do, we should, of course, probably identify barriers, right, to finding common ground. Because if we can identify the things that prohibit us from doing so, then we'll be able to hopefully avoid those and then do so. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so let's look at this. Barrier number one, assumption. Barrier number one, assumption. I already know what others feel. I already know what others know, feel, and want. I already know what others know, feel, and want. Assumption. How many of us are guilty of that? All the time, right? All the time, right? What I found is that the longer I'm in the position of leadership, the longer that I'm the one doing it, the more I feel like I already know what everybody else is going to say. And I watched this the other day. This is big in the Army. We get so used to answering the same questions over and over again, the same repetitive question over and over again, that it becomes real quick to just jump the gun and assume you already know. And I watched the Command Sergeant Major. He'd been doing recruiting for 28 years, and literally he knew the answer to every single question before. So the guy had said like 3 words, and as soon as he hit the key phrase, the Sergeant Major just cut him off and started answering the question immediately. Like, all right, well, that wasn't what he wanted to ask. It wasn't even a question. So of course, then it was like, now he still knew the answer to the question, but and he admitted, he caught us. He's like, my bad. He's like, my bad. He's like, I just hear the same questions over and over again. So I just assume I already know what you're gonna ask, right? And as leaders, we can
do
lose.
get caught up with that.
Yes, we can. We can. We get caught up with that in our groups. We get caught up with that with our families, right? We get caught up with that. I know I'm guilty of it with my son. He'll come to ask a question, and I'm like, yo, I already know. And then, like, even sometimes, how bad is it that anybody do this? Sometimes you're talking, and I'm not really listening, because I already know what I'm going to tell you. So I'm just waiting. Right, I already know what's going to happen. So again, with assumption, we're here, and you can see. So why would he put this as a barrier? Anybody? Why would he put this as a barrier to finding common ground?
Well, like you said, sometimes you're not even listening. You're just waiting for them to stop talking so you can give your response.
Okay.
You're not connecting.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about connecting. We're not talking about communicating, because as the book says, everyone communicates. We're talking about what allows you to connect. And what allows you to connect means that I'm going to wait, right? I'm going to listen. I'm going to hear you. And then note that he says, I already know what others know, feel, and want. So the assumption is that I'm not even emotionally connecting with you. And we know as leaders, one way of connecting means we empathize, right? And like my ability to feel what you feel, my ability to understand your pain, my ability to share in your moment of vulnerability and be vulnerable myself is already completely nixed if I'm assuming, right, that I know what others feel and want. All right, so Jerry Ballard here says all miscommunications are a result of differing assumptions. All miscommunications, are a result of differing assumptions. All right, so number 2, arrogance. 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 Arrogance says, I don't need to know what others know,
arrogance.
feel, or want. Yes, arrogance. ARROGANCE. So, what do we think there? Why arrogance? What would make that a barrier?
Because you're not willing to connect, you're not willing to even make the effort to find a common ground. You're not even, it's of no interest to you because who cares?
It's gonna be my way or the highway, almost.
Okay. Okay.
That's what, an arrogant person, I really almost feel like that.
Right. And so you all are saying that wouldn't let you don't want to connect with the person like that?
No, you're not gonna be able to, because they don't care, there ain't gonna be no common ground.
No, there ain't no common ground.
Unless you wanna bow down to them or something.
Right.
Okay. So, and I think that that's exactly right. I don't need to know. That's a statement ahead of the interaction. And you'll get that. You might go to a conference or something, and the speaker at the conference just tells you, doesn't attempt to connect with the audience. I'm here for my own agenda. I'm going to speak what I need to speak. I'm going to say what I need to say, and that's all there is to it. So there's no need to connect. There's no desire to connect with the group. Welcome. Let's see here over here. Again, I don't need to know what others know, feel, or want. So, Supreme Court Justice Louis D. Brandeis observed, 9/10 of the serious controversies that arise in life result from misunderstanding. From one man not knowing the facts, which the other man seemed important, or otherwise failing to appreciate his point of view. So from one man not knowing the facts, which to the other man seem important, or otherwise failing to appreciate his point of view. How many of us have had that experience where somebody was basically telling us what we were going to think, or explaining to us what we should feel about the situation, or what we should want to know about the conversation, and clearly not taking into consideration the things that we felt are important? How'd that make you feel when you had that experience?
So irritated. This is right for real right now. It's irritating. You don't even want to try to communicate with them at that point. You're just like, it's about you, and you're not going to hear anything.
Definitely.
And the setting, like as a recruit, you gotta, or when you're joining the service, they tell you how to think. I mean, during that session, this is what you're gonna do, this is how you're gonna do it, and this is why you're gonna do it. Okay, if that's what you wanna get out the academy, yes.
Right. Right. And I think that that makes a good point. So we understand that sometimes we may not be connecting. Right, so we can know that it's not our intent in certain settings to connect, that we're simply communicating information, right? And we should understand that if we're not getting the response that we wanted, to go back and assess whether we've created a barrier, right, in the form of our arrogance or in the form of our assumptions that would prohibit us from connecting with people. So it's important whenever you're considering and reflecting on what it was you said, or why your group didn't do what you wanted them to do, or how it came across when you spoke it, whether or not that you had brought one of these barriers to finding that common ground. And I think that good drill sergeants and good leaders will eventually find a way to connect. Right? They're gonna search. Yes, in the moment, yeah, I'm giving you guidance, right? But then later, I'm gonna remind you, hey, I'm doing this because this is how we need to move. We need to move with the quickness so that you understand that I still care about you. What he points out here in this quote, which I think is important, is he says, "One man not knowing the facts, which to the other man seem important." Well, the only way that I'm gonna ever know those facts is if you and I can spend enough time communicating for us to get to a place where you understand that I know what you're saying, right? And I understand how you're feeling, and I know what it is that you want before I offer a solution. So think about this for a moment. So let's go here and work this thought. When a person walks into the doors of a church, what do they want?
Deliverance.
Okay, all right, so you said salvation, deliverance. So you said to feel welcome, okay? What else?
Feel the love.
Okay, to feel love. All right. Anybody else? A person walks through the gates of the church. Not Sunday morning, they don't even have to knock, right? The doors are open. They come on in. What are they looking
Well,
for?
I guess love got to be welcome.
Okay. Love, what did you say, something, Doctor?
They want to get the word.
Okay, they want to get the word. All right. So one of the reasons why I ask this is because it's different assumptions as to why people walk in the door of the church. Now, if we're not taking the time to get to know why it is that they came in, right, and assuming, so let's assume that everybody who comes in the church needs salvation.
No.
They might not need that, right? But if immediately you're like, are you saved? Are you going to hell if you die? What's going to be their response?
No.
Right?
No.
But if you don't take the time to find out
Right.
why they came in the church, what brought them here, what they're looking for, then have you connected?
No, not if you only had the assumption.
Right. And most of us come across, and then unfortunately, I would wager that sometimes your assumption comes across as arrogance.
Right.
Right, in the sense that I don't need to know what you are feeling. I don't need to know what you already know. I don't need to know what you want. You came in, and I'm gonna give you, right, the same thing we give to everybody. And then if we're not having people come back, then that potentially could be a point of contention. So we want to make sure that we're examining, right, why people come to wherever they come to, whether it's your church, whether it's your business, whatever it may be. Go ahead, Pastor.
And I think that's partly because it depends on what setting we're in. If they come to, let's say, for example, they come to the police department, they would assume that they need help in some field, or they would be there. If they come to the church, then we assume that they need salvation and stuff. If they come to a restaurant, we assume that they need food.
Right.
Depends on the setting that we're in. And they may, like, people come to the courthouse. Well, a lot of people come there, they don't need nothing. They just need to go to the bathroom.
Wow.
That's all they need. They don't need nothing, no services outside of the bathroom because they was at the tag office. And so the tag office does not have a public bathroom, so they come up here. And I've learned that through the years. That's my question is, how can I help you? And they'll tell me, I either need to go somewhere in the courthouse, or they just say, I just need to go to the bathroom. I don't, unless I see it in their hand, certain papers and stuff that indicate where you need to go. Outside of that, if you come in with empty hands, I can't take that. Okay, well, this is where you need to go, unless I ask that question.
Exactly. So it's important that we ask those questions, and it's really important that we connect. And how much different are we from everyone else if we spend time connecting, right? If we spend time seeking out that common ground. If we spend time, now understand that in today's society that can be difficult, right? Because who wants to give more than 5 minutes to answer, right, any question or anything like that? So it's important that we find ways to do that. We're going to actually talk about ways to find common ground as we go forward. All right, a couple more barriers to finding common ground. Number 3, indifference. Number 3 is indifference. I don't care to know what others know, feel, or want. I don't care to know what others know, feel, or want. Indifference. I don't care to know what others know, feel, or want. So why might that be a barrier to common ground? Why might that be?
That way you'll never have common ground with anyone.
Okay. All right, definitely.
You're not gonna,
Right. You say again?
You're not gonna attempt to try to connect.
Okay, definitely. And here's the thing. See, we're talking about everyone communicates, few connect. But most people, I think, when they're speaking, don't think about connecting. Right? I would wager that most people consider their communication all the connection that they need to do in the first place. So I would suggest that we're, moving a step above, as it were. You're developing those skills necessary to lead your teams because you understand that I'm not looking merely to communicate, but I'm actually looking to connect. And so from that perspective, what it allows you to do is consider what then might be prohibiting you from connecting. Now, what you'll begin to see is how that affects the way, or what you'll begin to see is when people are talking to you and you're like, man, I'm not really feeling this. I wonder why. Why aren't they connecting with me? And then potentially, when you're really comfortable, you'll reach out to that person, especially if they're like one of your bosses or your next line supervisor and stuff like that, and develop that relationship, and then in a gentle way be able to say to them, hey, so when you speak to me like this, or when you speak like this, we're not really connecting, all right? Because all I'm hearing is indifference, that you don't care to want to know how I feel, or what I know, or what I want, or any of that stuff. That clearly doesn't matter enough to you to wager consideration. Here, comedian George Carlin joked, scientists announced today that they had found a cure for apathy. However, they claim no one has shown the slightest bit of interest in it. That's good stuff right there. That's good stuff right there. All right, so so often, unfortunately, people communicate like that, completely apathetic. Doesn't matter what you say. I'm gonna go on ahead and do what I want to do. So let's not be like that. That would be a barrier. Okay, number 4, last barrier: control. Control. I don't want others to know what I know, feel, or think. Control. I don't want others to know what I know, feel, or think. All right, so control. I mean, who doesn't want control? Let me ask that first. Who doesn't want control? All right. Everybody wants a measure of control, right? I want to make sure things happen accordingly. So then, how as connectors, right? How as people seeking to connect, should we relinquish, or can we relinquish our control so that we can actually be able to connect with people?
I think when you're transparent, you relinquish control. You're willing to share, to be intimate with people in your conversation. It's a way of relinquishing that control.
Okay. All right. So being transparent. What about asking for help?
Yeah.
Right. Right. Would that be a relinquishing of control?
Yeah.
Saying I don't know. Right.
Right.
Admitting you might know something. Is that something that bothers us? Like when you know the answer, right, and that person's just like, all right, nope, nobody knows the answer. Okay. And you over here like, I know the answer. I got you. And they're like, yeah, no. All right. So this is how we gonna do it, T.
But listen, what if you got that person that always want to be in control, and like you have all these, big ideas, and you want to share it with that person, and you done told them all the great ideas. But no, we don't want to do it like that. But then, okay, they supervisor come up for them and say everything that you just said to them that they want to do. So I know how I get there. Sometimes I'm gonna be a little niggerish. And I'm a nigger twice like saying that, but I'm niggerish first. My mind and thought, and that's the Lord forgive me. But I would be like, now I done, poured my heart out. But then when the big boss come and I said the same thing, then you looking at me like, well, we had kind of been saying these things, but you told me, we're not doing anything like that, or, and I don't see that apart. This one that I come, now, I don't even say we could put those ideas to do nothing.
Okay.
But it do kind of make you feel bad, you know, it
Right,
would make a
right.
person feel bad because you really point your heart out, and everything you shoot at them, they just,
Right.
you know, throw it down because they want that control, they don't want to relinquish that.
Exactly. Okay, so what group? She asked the question. What do you do when you have that person who just blocks everything and don't want to give up control? What are your thoughts?
You better call the shots. You just let it go.
Go with the flow,
Okay.
in the name of Jesus.
Even before you knew Jesus, you do that.
Well, you know, one of the things that I feel, and I haven't been in this situation lots of times, I ask questions. So, you know, if I have a thought about how we could do something or da-da-da-da-da, and, or even if I know that this works, and I feel like in my heart that they're not gonna be receptive because I poured out my heart before and they really weren't receptive, I will say, you know, what do you think about so-and-so and so-and-so? Is that a possibility that that could happen? So then it's non-threatening to their control level, and, you know, so then it also gives a perception of that I'm willing to help and I'm making a suggestion. So it helps them not be so intimidated or whatever, threatened. Because I think one of the reasons why people don't want to give control is because they feel threatened.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely. All right, so that's good. Anybody else?
It's good depending on the person, because if you do that, they'll still be like, they'll get you later, when you get that, when you have that type of boss. Like, yeah, oh, okay, we already, okay, they give you that look like, all right, we'll talk later.
Okay, so part of that may be having that conversation, the difference in private versus public, right? We want to make sure that we have that conversation right behind closed doors, so that they can come out and make it their idea.
Right,
Right, because I think inevitably, we know a lot of times that's what's going to happen. And so we have to be prepared for that as well.
And be willing.
And be willing to share those. And one of the things we talked about early, say again?
Sometimes you don't have a choice. You should
Right.
be willing, you
Right,
don't have a
yeah,
choice.
this is
You wanna
true,
work there.
this is true. But one of the things we talked about early in our leadership classes was that leadership is not positional, right? And so that I can be the leader without having to be the one in the position of power. Because some people lead from a position of power, but John actually suggests that that's the lowest level of leadership, is when I'm the one, you're gonna do this because I'm in charge. Like that's just the lowest level of leadership. Now, some people never go past that because that's all they need. But when you actually are connecting with people, then you become an influencer at higher levels. And so you can become the informal leader who's responsible for getting things done. People will look to you for almost like quote unquote approval beforehand. And so, again, just depending on your situation, it's a fine line to walk, right? It's a fine, and so it takes much maturity, right? And it takes much prayer, and it also takes, you know, wanting to see the group be successful, right? And trusting that your time is gonna come, so that you're gonna have the opportunity to be in charge and stuff like that. Eventually, to be knowing how you would wanna respond when you're in that situation. So all of those things play a role. You have to be willing to be led, right, in order to be the leader, right? So where I'm going through and to follow, right? And so when I'm going through these kind of situations, I have to give consideration to the fact that it's for a reason, right? So that what can I learn from this? What can I learn from when I find myself in there? So I think that the asking from a why perspective, you can say, hey, by the way, I just heard this kind of suggestion, or, you know, I think I heard somebody else did this at another place. I just wanted to bring this to the group, or, you know, bring this to you, boss, and see your thoughts on it and kind of thing. It's not really my idea. That way they don't feel like, oh yeah, you're trying to make it happen, right? You can just be like, it's just something I had heard, or I was reading this last night, and I don't know, I just wondered around. I don't even know if it'll work, but you know.
Right.
So, I mean, you don't have to, you know, make yourself seem like the smartest person in the room in order to get that. And people will have conversations and be like, well, yeah, you know, it just worked out real good, didn't it? It was great. And your boss will know that. You know, your boss will know that when that came up behind doors, you were tactful enough to have the conversation that made them look good, and he or she hopefully will reward you going forward. with opportunities and stuff like that, so.
You know, I had
Go
a
ahead.
situation where I worked in a job and they had a new boss come in and da. And every time I would go into his office, he would call me in there and give me an assignment. He'll say, Vanessa, he said, why come every time I give you an assignment, you give me 2 or 3? I said, boss, my job is to make you look good. I'm just make you look good. Okay. So that's why I'm giving you suggestions. So you look good before your boss. My job is to make you look good.
Right.
So, you know, he was really receptive, but he picked up on the fact that I was giving him a little task to do. If you knew XXX, when you knew XXX, because, you know, I fell into the trap because I had that kind of relationship with the previous manager where they looked to me to give them how to do, what to do, when to do. So I just fell right into it with him. I said, what you doing? You give me an assignment every time I give you 1, you give me 2 or 3.
Was he receptive?
I said he was receptive. He was very receptive because he was new to the job. We were behind closed doors. You know, we made it kind of like a joke, and he was like, you know, he wanted to shine. He was one of them kind of people. He was there. He wanted to shine. So he knew that somebody inside, knowing what to do, coming highly recommended, that was a voice he could hear without threat.
And remember that eventually your boss is going to have a conversation without you. And people are going to realize that those ideas came from somewhere else. Right? I mean, that conversation is going to be had at some point. And then the word is going to be, well, who is the conversation coming from? Who are the ideas coming from? So your reputation will get out there. You will become known as. And then, you know, that's just the part of it that comes along with time and perspective. And as we talk about this, you choose how your environment will be. You might can't control your boss, but you can control everything else around you. And when I say control, I don't mean manipulate. All right, I'm not talking about causing tension or creating. I'm just saying that the dynamic can be different. You can walk into the place and make the dynamic different. You can walk into the situation and be courteous. Let's say like your boss comes in, everybody's all angry, shh, quiet, the boss is here, the boss is here. You can be the one who comes in and it's like, hey, how's everybody doing? Girl, it's good to see you today. Man, it's, my man, how was that game last night? Good. Oh my gosh, did you do something to your hair? You can be that person. You can be the complete antithesis of your boss, the complete opposite of your boss. And you will immediately just shine. You immediately set yourself apart. And you can do it as low key. Hey, so is boss good? Is today a good day or bad day? You know, kind of thing like that. You know, you can make it fun. You can make it all those things. Then people will look to you and they will listen to your ideas. And then you might even get one of them to suggest an idea from time to time to the boss. Hey, so listen, this is a good idea. Why don't you bring it though instead of me this time? And you're like, wow, yeah. And then they share with the boss, and the boss doesn't think that you're coming for their job. Right? And then it comes from everybody. Everybody feels good. So all these things are ways we're talking about connecting, and we're talking about growing, and really, you know, the whole idea is as real leaders, as your leaders, as you've been given opportunities, and when those opportunities come, how are you going to do? Because what happens when somebody brings you an idea? How receptive are you? Right? And do you facilitate an environment where people think it's okay for you to come and talk to me? It's okay for you to come and bring your suggestion. Like we say, hey, we got to have this conversation behind closed doors with the unreceptive boss. But if I'm out there standing in front of the group and then somebody says, hey, actually those numbers are wrong, how are we gonna respond? Excuse me, who are you talking to? Right. Are you fact checking my numbers?
Wow.
I wish you fired. You know, but are we the ones? Have we created that atmosphere? Have we created the way that says, hey, listen, we're all in this, getting communicate, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so he says here, I love Jim Lundy's take on this in his book, Lead, Follow, or Get Out the Way. In it, he includes the response of people who work in an environment where leaders hold them back from, where leaders hold back from them, excuse me. He writes about the subordinate's lament, which says, we, the uninformed, working for the inaccessible, are doing the impossible for the ungrateful.
Wow. That's a lot. What a statement.
That's a lot, right? We, the uninformed, working for the inaccessible, are doing the impossible for the ungrateful. I feel like we all must have been there a time or two, right, in our life. All right, and the mushroom farm lament. The mushroom farm lament, which goes like this. We feel like we're being kept in the dark. Every once in a while, someone comes around and spreads manure on us.
Wow.
When our heads pop up, they're chopped off, and then we're canned.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
That's not good.
Right? That's terrible. You know, so like maybe if your boss is not understanding you trying to be on the team, just put that anonymously, slide that under the door.
Wow.
Yes. Anonymous from the whole team. Yes, okay. Okay, so let's talk about choices that will help you find common ground. Choices that will help you find common ground. Number one, availability. Availability. I will choose to spend time with others. Availability. I will choose to spend time with others. So we're talking about this from a leadership perspective and the idea of connecting and finding common grounds. Why is availability important?
So you can make yourself accessible.
Okay, so making yourself accessible, all right?
I guess just letting that person know your availability. You let them know if I need you, like a person, you know, if you need me, you know, just let me know. I'll be there for you.
Okay.
And it's good if that person, you know, it makes them feel good. When they
Okay.
call you, you're there.
Right, right. So it's not only just saying it, but actually being available when they call you. Go ahead, what were you gonna say?
When she said that, I was thinking about the word building up their confidence, their reassurance in the relationship.
Okay, definitely, definitely. And note that he says, I will choose to spend time with others, right? So I'm making that a point of something that I'm going to do that's a part of who I am as a leader. And I know that going in. So even, you know, when we're in ministry and we have whatever we have been placed in charge of, am I choosing to spend time with those people? Or do I only see them when they show up? You know, do I take some extra time, or do I only when I see them, you know, hey, I need you to do this, hey, good job, by the way, and then I'm on. You know, that's not quite the same level of availability that you need in order to find common ground.
Sometimes they might just call you maybe in the middle of the afternoon or in the middle of the morning or something, and say, hey, I thought about this, let's see how it's working out. Okay, I'm available, let's talk it over, whatever.
Right, definitely, definitely. And then sometimes it's just good to give a call and just see
Exactly.
how's your day going. How
Exactly.
should we? No, I don't need an update or anything. I'm just calling to check on you, make sure you know everything is everything, and that we're moving along. Okay, so number two, listening. Listening. I will listen my way to common ground. Listening. I will listen my way to common ground. So here, Sonia Hamlin in her book, How to Talk So People Listen, notes that most people find this difficult, this being listening, because of the me first factor. Right? Listening requires giving up our favorite human pastime, involvement in ourselves and our own self-interest. It is our primary, entirely human focus, and it's where our motivation to do anything comes from. With this as a base, can you see what a problem is created when we're asked to listen to someone else? So one of the things they tell us in like sales and recruiting and stuff like that is that the more you listen, the more people will talk. Right? And the more they talk, the more you find out what motivates them. And then once you find out their motivation, you can get them to purchase anything. Wow. The best listeners are the best salespeople. They just sit there and let you talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and then all I've got to do is put whatever it is that you just told me with whatever it is I'm trying to get you to buy, and I'm walking out of there with my commissions. Okay, you go open your checkbook. Wow. But it's even with that being that simple, it's really hard for people to do. Right?
Right.
Because I want to tell you all about me. I want to tell you all about my experience. I want to tell you all about, and this is the thing. We so often don't think of it as a bad thing. So me and you are talking and you're telling me about how you like cooking, and I just can't help but tell you about my mama's jambalaya recipe, and then like we're just going. But the conversation isn't me listening, right? The conversation is me reading you my autobiography. So what I need to do is learn how to listen. I need to learn how to be intentional about asking things like why. Well, why did you do that? Or what happened there? Or what led that to happen? Or how did that affect you? Or where have you seen yourself grow from that experience? And how did that make you feel? You see how all that generates you talking more and me listening more, which is what we don't want to do, because that's what we want somebody to do for us so that we can start talking. Most people are I don't remember the quote, I don't remember who said it exactly, but it's like most people are the stars of their own movie, but nobody's watching. Right? So as soon as we get the chance to show somebody our movie, we want to show it. We want to roll the whole thing, unroll the, credits, 6-part trilogy. Like we somehow. So when you want to find common ground with people, you gotta listen. When you want to connect with people, you gotta listen. Okay. Questions. Number 3, questions. I will be interested enough in others to ask questions. I will be interested enough in others to ask questions. And so kind of just like in the example I did somebody saying they like cooking, questions would be, well, what do you like cooking? What's your favorite type of cookware? Do you cook on a gas or an electric stove? You know, do you watch cooking shows? All those are questions, as opposed to, well, I like cooking jambalaya. My mama has a great jambalaya recipe. I think cornbread's much better with jambalaya than rolls. You know? But when I get my shrimp from Louisiana, fresh off the boat, is better than when I get it from the Atlantic, and I'm just gone, right? Like, you see the difference in connecting, right? It's just questions, asking questions. But I have to be interested in them. Say again?
What if they don't like questions?
Well, they might not want to connect with you, I tell them.
Okay, but I think that's a good point though. So are there some reasons why somebody might not want to answer your questions?
Yes.
Okay, like what?
They're hiding something.
Okay, yes. Okay. All right, so again, to which you said they might not want to connect.
Sometimes I have this one person, and everybody in my household asks me, what in the world do you listen to them? You can't even get a word in. I said, because they just venting, I'm just here to let them vent.
Okay.
They be like, oh my God, I'll be the hung with the phone. And I really can't do no like that. But after that person they get through, they fine though.
Okay.
You know, cause I've learned a lot. Well, you know, and why don't you? And I said, girl, shut up and just let her talk.
But let me ask you, do they ever get finished? I mean, do they ever get finished? Like, honestly, I'm really asking an honest question right now. Because I know someone like that, and she never gets finished. So I'm just asking.
You have to get off the phone with them?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes. They'll tell you their story, and they'll keep telling you their story. And you listen, you let them vent, and then they'll just go on to the next subject and leave about that, and they don't ever stop. They don't ever stop. Unless something comes along, or somebody comes to their house, they gotta go do something, they don't ever stop.
Yep.
So I just wondered, did your person ever stop?
It's just, some people just don't want to be bothered, period. So, yeah, some of them is just like, and I got a couple of them in my family, and I just sit back and look at them. My head tilt to the side, be like, real, they won't be bothered. And they just like that. I mean, that's their life. They don't want to be bothered.
Okay. And so I think that we have to take in consideration that not everybody wants to connect, right? Not everybody's going to want to answer your question. Some people just want somebody to listen, right? While they just yammer and talk on and on about everything that's going on, right? And they're not really interested so much in changing. So I have to choose as a leader where I put my resources, right? If I'm just completely honest with the situation. Not every person is going to be somebody who I'm going to connect at the highest levels with. Sometimes I'm going to be in just a positional type of relationship. I'm in charge. Thanks for your input. Now go do what I said. Right? And some people I'm going to be able to have a deeper foundational relationship with based upon us spending time with each other, based upon us asking questions, based upon us connecting. Those, I think, are real things. I can't expect that I'm going to connect with every single person in the world. And so if you sit there and berate yourself or judge yourself harshly saying, oh, I failed today as a leader because I didn't connect with sister so-and-so or brother so-and-so, then I think you miss the whole point here. You'll connect with the people who want to connect, and you'll have the opportunity to facilitate growth in people who want to grow. Now, where I might differ from some people is I don't think that you necessarily have to always just smile at everybody who's saying that. If I'm in a leadership perspective and I got somebody who's just always venting, but never takes time, I feel it's my responsibility as a leader to bring them to a place of recognition. Every time you and I have a conversation, you've only got X, Y, Z wrong. There's a problem there. Let's see if we can move. I'm going to ask some pointed questions as to why we always have this. Why is there always something that bothers you? Why do you let every single one of these situations always cause you to get down? Why aren't we moving past this? Why haven't you eliminated that type of situation from your life? Now, if I'm in a leadership perspective, now if we're just friends, we're just friends. Right. Chop it up to me as long as I will listen to you on the phone. So I'm like, oh, well, my phone's got bad static interference. There's a storm over here. Click. We pray for them, Lord. Be with them. Hallelujah.
Well, we had a situation. We went, about 50 people went to the house and we were going around to see some people. We went to, to pray, to encourage. And if they wanted prayer, to have prayer. We went into the ICU to this one man, and he just tells us everything. He just wanted to tell everything. He just was in there by himself, and he just needed somebody to talk to. Right. And so we showed up that day. So there we were. And he was going on, he was sharing, and we were nodding and putting in a word here and there, and he was sharing, and we was like, we'll pray, and he's going on and sharing some more. While we started looking at each other kind of like out the eye. I'm looking for a chair.
Sit on the bed.
I think we need to be leaving. And I was just in my mind searching. I was not connecting. I was searching for a way out.
I was waiting for her to search for it because I didn't know. This is my first time doing this. I'm like, okay.
Searching for a way out.
Yes. There you go. And you have
you
those
get
experiences.
people like that. You got people that have no one to talk to.
Right.
And we understood that.
Right.
We've been there. Wow.
When they confront to somebody, they got it.
Exactly. And so that's just understanding your people. You may have somebody like that who you're leading, right? Somebody who's they're just part of your group, and it is what it is, and they're the ones that everybody kind of seems to shun, and whenever they start talking, you're going to learn a whole bunch of stuff about a whole bunch of stuff you didn't care to know about. It is what it is. But that brings us to number 4, thoughtfulness. Thoughtfulness. I will think of others and look for ways to help them. Thoughtfulness. And so what I think sometimes is because those people so rarely get a chance to share and so rarely have an opportunity that they just think, oh, this might be the last time ever because it's been months since. I need to just unload everything that's happened. If we can show them that I'm going to connect you with other people, I'm going to bring your voice into the group. So, you're sitting there in the group. One of the things they say in organizational leadership, they say whenever you're doing like a group and you want a question and you want the opinions, always start with the junior member. Because everybody, if you ask the senior member, everybody is just going to fall in line with the senior member. So ask the junior member first, and then get his opinion, or her opinion, and just go on from there. So thoughtfulness says, I'm going to get you another chance to speak, right? I'm going to get your voice and show you that your voice matters in the group. So I will think of others and look for ways to help them. When somebody knows that that's the kind of leader you are, that's when you're connecting with them. That's when they're gonna be like, oh, well, actually I did have a lot, but you know what? I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about this, and then we'll come back the next time and have another conversation. Cool. Or since you introduced me to so and so the other day, we've actually been really talking about all this stuff, so I don't actually have to blow your ear off this time. Everything's going good. Right? This is great. Thank you. All right, thoughtfulness. All right, number 5, openness. Openness. I will let people into my life. I will let people into my life. So what do we think? How would that be helpful with communicating and connecting? Openness. I will let people into my life.
Well, it feels like when you're open, it feels like a person can, don't mind coming and talking to you because they feel like you'll be responsive to them or whatever.
Oh, yeah. You know what they're going through, because you've been there.
Right. Right. Okay.
I can trust you.
Okay. Yeah.
I gotta know how to spell it. Y'all see me turn my paper upside down and everything. I'm like, okay, I got stuck.
Openness.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, it just didn't look
Just
right.
didn't look right. Yes, indeed.
Okay, no, I apologize.
You good? You good? Why do people think that vulnerability is such an important trait for a leader? Well, I guess I'm assuming. Does everybody think vulnerability is an important trait for a leader? See, some people say yes. I get a lot of yeses there. Okay, let me pause there. All right, go ahead.
Can we rephrase it?
Go ahead, rephrase it.
How would you like to? How would you? Okay. Okay. So, what is the difference then between vulnerability
And being
openness?
transparent?
Yeah, transparent too, but vulnerability and openness.
Because in some ways you might feel like you can't trust people because of past experiences.
Okay.
And it would cause you not to be vulnerable to certain things, not susceptible to be open
Mm-hmm.
to certain things. You might, I mean, some people might be open some, but not completely open because of the experiences that you had.
Okay. All right. But now, how does that go against the barriers that we have for finding common ground?
Well, I guess that word control. Have a lot to do with that.
All right. And I think also the assumption, right? Because
Right.
I already know what these people are going to do to me, given that I've been hurt before in the past. And so we see how one clearly would be a barrier and how one would then, of course, allow you to connect and to choose those common grounds. But how many people feel that same way? You know, like I've been hurt before and I don't want to have that hurt again.
And see, I would think that it would make people think, okay, well, she's human. She's like, you know what I'm saying? Because everybody don't see as, I mean, I just say, I think that they would think that you're human. You know
By
what I'm
being
saying?
vulnerable.
By being vulnerable.
Yeah.
By being
Right.
vulnerable. You're like me.
More
You know
like
what I'm
you
saying?
empathize.
Exactly. That's,
But too, I agree, you know, with Sister about it being really difficult to, you know, when you feel like you've been hurt and because I recently had this being, I was sharing with the contract, I said, well, I'm making my purpose. I'm on purpose, not going to try to bring that into the next relationship. Because it's unfair that you won't be open with other people because somebody else hurt you.
somebody hurt you.
Somebody else hurt you, but it's not that person.
Right.
And even though we sometimes are in protect mode, we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to let people to have that opportunity to hurt because it's closest people that hurt most often. So it's a struggle to continue to open yourself up.
Right.
To continue to on purpose be vulnerable so that you can connect, so that you don't produce a barrier to really, you know, getting to know someone who might be a blessing, might be the one.
Right. Oh, that's real.
I think this is extremely real, that we all will face that struggle, right? At some point in time, as a leader, you're gonna have somebody who may hurt you, right? And then when you go into a similar situation that seemingly is deja vu, to say it's not deja vu, to say I'm gonna be intentional about still remaining open, about still taking you so that I don't miss out on the opportunity that is this relationship now, as opposed to just judging you in advance. And all we're talking about is the difference between communicating and connecting. You don't have to connect. You can choose not to. But of course, we run the risk then of our vision not being accomplished the way we wanted to, and full effort not being given to the situation. And I think it's even okay to say, listen, this is why. Just so you know where I'm coming from. Sharing experiences of things that have happened in the past that make us who we are as we delve into deeper conversations, as we ask questions and seek to know each other better, as we move from just communication to connection. I'm going to share with you. By the way, I was hurt once when I had somebody in your same position. You know, like the old Usher song, "You Remind Me of a Girl."
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to suggest that if you say that to somebody, that can help them understand. They might even make some additional moves, some, you know, well, let me actually be extra clear about my motives here. And let me make a point to make sure that it's clear why we're doing what we're doing and stuff, so that it helps everybody to grow from this. Because we don't want to get stuck.
Right.
The most important thing is we don't want to get stuck always in a loop, always playing the same old song over and over again. So, okay.
Oh, that's real.
But definitely, that was good, and appreciate the sharing there. Number 6, likability. Likability. I will care about people. Likability. All right, so Roger Ailes, a former communication consultant to presidents, believes the most influential factor in public speaking is likability. He says that if people like you, they will listen to you, and if they don't, they won't. So we want to make sure that the people who we're trying to connect with actually like us. Now, let me just bring this up here for just a pause moment. I had a leader say that it's not about likership, it's about leadership. Thoughts? I'm just going to throw that out to the group and get some feedback, see everybody's thoughts. It's not about likership, it's about leadership.
Going back to arrogance.
Yeah. They're not trying to make any friends. They're just there to lead. This is what it is, and this is what it's gonna be, and let's just go with it. Right.
Control and opposition.
Wait, what was the...
I said, if you like that, you ain't gonna have nobody leave, cause I ain't gonna be studying you. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, but if you work for me,
What
Maybe
about
look,
you?
I just dot my I's and cross my T's, and I ain't gotta like you either.
okay,
Does
so
it depend- well, can I say
Go ahead.
this? It depends on the organization. Because the military is not about liking.
Right.
The military is about obeying orders. It's about the structure. When I went into the military, I remember the first time that I met my drill sergeant. And my drill sergeant told me we have to have the same last name that I did. We were probably about 5 years apart. But his philosophy was, I'm not here, I don't want you liking me. Because liking me to loving and loving me to effing and on down the road. So that was his philosophy.
Oh, wow.
And so it wasn't about me, it was about doing what I was told to do.
Me too.
And so I would say that to me, it would depend on the organization. Some organizations not about liking. It's about just doing
what they say to do, straightforward.
Yes, it's about orders and structure like this here. Now, even on certain jobs, I ain't got time for you to like me to do what needs to be done. I need you to just follow these orders. Because we get, and liking at times can become a problem.
Well, I think too, it's depending on the culture of within the organization. It depends upon what you want out of an organization. Do you want an organization where you don't care about the morale of the people within an organization? It's just, do they follow my instructions? Okay, so there's ways people can follow instructions. So if I follow instructions, I go sucking my teeth all the way, go do it. As long as I got it done, that's all you as the leader care about. She got it done. Okay, did I do my best? If it's a production environment, could I have done more? If I'm a customer service person, did I answer the phone well, or did I handle the situation? So it depends too about what you want from your organization, what kind of environment you want people. At the end of the day, everybody understands, if your name is on the end of my check, and I sign a dotted line to work for you, I'm expected to do what you say.
Exactly.
But if I want an organization where it was the Solomon type in the Bible, where the people came and they saw the excellence and they saw how the people loved the king and how they loved what they were doing and how they came with their best and everybody was impressed at how well, it depends a lot.
Morale and all that. Wow.
Yeah, they probably had that experience where they have like people and people take stuff for granted. Because then you have people that start to slack off because of the relationship that they have with the leader. Well, I'm close to the leader and I can do this X, Y, and Z.
Right. Okay. So we've got some good perspectives there, right? Like, what is the organization's culture that we're striving for? In some situations, I have to be ready to do, even if I don't necessarily like it. And then in some places, people have taken advantage of the relationship that we had built. And so we know that all of that exists. We have to determine as leaders what kind of organization we're going to have and what we're striving for. I remember being told by one of my senior leaders that when I took over, I should come in extremely hard. I should be extremely demanding and very strict, and then lighten up as we got better. Because it was very difficult, they said, if you came in very light and very friendly and everything like that, and then people were taking advantage of you to try to toughen up. Because at that point, nobody's going to believe that you're capable of going hard because you came in so easy. So there's lots of different ways that you can do this leadership thing. You have to determine for yourself how you're going to connect with people. Your likability, if it's about caring, is going to come through even if, I think, you're holding people to a standard. Right? Because if I'm taking time to be available, if I'm taking time to listen, if I'm taking time to ask questions, if I'm demonstrating thoughtfulness, if I'm spending time sharing and being open, you're probably going to like me. But in that conversation that we're having, where we're sharing with each other, I'm also sharing with you my expectations. And I'm also sharing with you that if we can't seem to get along, then we may have to part ways. I'm not threatening you. I'm just simply establishing the kind of culture that we want to have. One where we can all have fun. But if we can't all have fun, you got to go. Because in this company, I've got to rep. Right? I mean, it's at the end of the day, it kind of is what it is. But it's the expectations that you set for your culture that matter. So likability and leadership should go hand in hand. In theory, I want to be a leader that's liked, but I also want to have a culture. One of the things we talk about in organizational culture is the idea of your culture should set the tone for your organization. So the new person who comes in doesn't need a sit down from the HR or doesn't need the SOP book of rules. Hey, this is how we do things here. It should be whoever, probably the last new guy, that said, hey, come here, let me show you all the things you need to know. When the boss come in on Monday, if you're wearing a blue sweater, you good. If you're wearing a red sweater, hey, stay out of the way, right? And we all have had the little quirks that our boss had. Whose car he drive in? Did he have his coffee? Need to have the macchiato right there on the right? We teach those things, hopefully, and that's going to be based on what you've established in the culture as what it is that you want to go on. So just all things to think about in terms of being able to connect with people. All right. Number 7, humility. Number 7, humility. I will think of myself less so I can think of others more. Humility. I will think of myself less so I can think of others more. Poet, journalist, and editor Alan Ross asserted, humility means knowing and using your strength for the benefit of others on behalf of a higher purpose. The humble leader is not weak, but strong. Is not preoccupied with self, but with how to best use his or her strengths for the good of others. A humble leader does not think less of himself, but chooses to consider the needs of others in fulfilling a worthy cause. I love to be in the presence of a humble leader because they bring out the very best in me. Their focus is on my purpose, my contribution, and my ability to accomplish all I set out to accomplish. All I set out to accomplish. So what do we think about this and the description here listed? Do we feel that we're those kind of leaders? Striving towards it, right?
Basically, I think he is saying that I don't need the glory. I don't want the glory for himself. But if we all work together, we'll, the whole group will get the glory.
Right.
It's not confined just to
One
me
is
as being the leader, it's just, we want all of us to work together.
Okay. You know, a couple of things that I think in there that's really good is where he talks about the focus being on your purpose, your contributions, and your abilities. So, and from a leadership perspective, right, that means that we're spending the time getting to know our people,
Exactly.
but specific things about our people.
Exactly.
You
That's
know,
what y'all do.
so what are your abilities, right? What is your purpose? What can you contribute to the team? Where can I put you in a place that you'll shine? Where can I put you in a place where you'll work most effectively? What obstacles and barriers can I remove from your life, if necessary, in your situation? What resources do I need to give you in order to empower you to be the very best that you can be? So that's why the humble leader is not worried about himself. He doesn't have time for worrying about himself. He's worried about those who he leads. And then you are free to turn around and do what? The same thing. So that chain always goes down, right, to each person who you're leading. So if I do that to you, and you turn around and do that to your people, and they turn around and do it to their people, how much better, right, would everything be? Your life, your family, your organization, your culture, everything that you're a part of. Humility means knowing and using your strength for the benefit of others on behalf of a higher purpose. So humility is a capacity for self-criticism. Number one, a capacity for self-criticism. And number two, allowing others to shine. Allowing others to shine. Humility is a capacity for self-criticism and allowing others to shine. So I think obviously these are important, right? I have to be able to look at myself and say, hey, I didn't make it, right? And own it, which is sometimes hard because it's easier to blame somebody else, right? It's easier to blame a spouse. We're talking about our families, right? Oh, you held me back. So you blame their family, right? It's easier to blame our past, right? Oh my gosh, if I hadn't had that one thing happen or them 10 things happen or whatever. It's easier to blame our past. It's easier to blame our current situation. It's easier to blame everything, really, honestly, except ourselves. And so the capacity for self-criticism doesn't mean that I'm just walking around talking about how terrible I am with the defeatist type mindset, but just acknowledging that, hey, I'm not where I need to be, and I need to elevate myself in order to be there. All right? And then allowing others to shine. The ability to let other people be in the midst of the ones who get the praise, the ones who get, honor for what it is that they've contributed. And in return, that's going to shine back on you. Because when your team looks good,
You look good.
who's the team leader?
That's what she just said.
Exactly. All right, number 8, adaptability. Adaptability. I will move from my world to theirs. Adaptability. 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 I will move from my world to theirs. Who's ready to move from their world to somebody else's?
I can sometimes be hard too.
It most definitely can. How many of you remember leaders or have had leaders who moved from their world to yours? Charlie Cook's place be priceless, right?
What? You talking to us?
So serious. That exists. Right. Or the
An
next.
example in there somewhere.
Right, exactly.
What that baby scrub?
Oh man, adaptability. Okay, so as leaders, it's our responsibility to move out of our comfort zone to that of those who will be. Right? To move from that place, to really connect with them, to really get into their place. Now, I suggest, and this has been suggested, this is not a Justin thought originally, but it's been suggested that this is why Jesus limited himself to 12. Right? Because there's only so much time you have And if you're married and you have kids, right, you have a family that you're leading, if you're doing those things, you can't have, you only have but so many hours. You need some sleep at some point. You need to have time to rest. So Jesus, moving from his world into his disciples meant being around them a lot, being intentional, being involved, and then that was replicated right on down and down and down. And so as we do the same thing, you can't do that with everybody. So you may have a core 3 or a core 5 who you do that to, and they in turn, are replicating that thing, and they in turn are empowering. So some other things that I think that need to be considered as well is the intentionality required in all 8 of these steps when it comes to connecting. See, this isn't stuff that you can just do by accident. This isn't stuff that you'll just do without thinking about it, right? In order for me to move from my world, from my paradigm, my way of seeing things, my worldview, my way of communicating. Maybe I'm a fast talker. This is a perfect example. The other day, one of the guys, my boss was telling me, and he was like, man, this guy just talks so slow. And he's like, he just talks so slow. And like he's hesitating, and he's kind of stuttering, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, will you hurry up.
Right.
I was like, oh, this is going to be great for you. It's a great growth opportunity. Because he's got to move from his world, right, where you want to hear it, get it, and spit it out and keep going, to like, right? And then he's got to resist the temptation to, while this guy is trying to spit it out, just zone off and go somewhere else. And only listen with a little bit of his mind, and then come back and be like, all right, so I'm going to tell you what I was going to tell you in the first place. When it takes intentionality for us not to get sucked up into that same situation where we have to be willing to move from our world. We have to be willing to be open. We have to be willing to be available. We have to be willing to listen and ask questions and be thoughtful and have openness. It takes intentionality. It takes that work. It takes every day thinking about, okay, this is my group, this is my team. You can do this in your family. If you're not in charge of anything, just take a minute and think about, how am I doing in my family? Am I available? Does my people like me? When they say I want to follow that person. I want to be around them. I want to hear. They come from their world, right? From all of our preconceived ideas and notions about how it should be done, right? Listen, I went to it and I did this and this and this and it worked for me. Now you need to do. Have we moved from our world to theirs? All right, to connect on common ground. These 4 points here, and we're finishing up. We're not going to go to 7 today because we're already at like 90 minutes. Y'all doing great, so we're going to just save 7 for next time. Session 6, to connect on common ground. Ask, do I feel what you feel, before asking, do you feel what I feel? So to connect on common ground, ask, do I feel what you feel, before asking, do you feel what I feel?
Understood. Okay, got your way.
Okay. Yeah. So it's page 18.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're still on page 18.
Oh.
Okay.
Do I see what you see, before asking, do you see what I see?
Gotcha.
Right? Do I know what you know, before asking, do you know what I know? And do I know what you want, before asking, do you know what I want? Because so many times we're real quick to say, do you feel what I feel? Do you feel it? Tell me you feel it. I want you to feel it. Do you see it? Do you see what I see? Do y'all see where we're trying to go? Does everybody see where we're trying to go? Well, no, I can't see where we're trying to go because you don't see where I am.
Okay.
Right? Do you know what I know? No, I don't actually.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
So wait, like you said, Pastor, seek to understand and not to be understood.
Before.
Seek to understand. Before.
Seeking to be understood.
Oh, before. Okay, that was a key thing. I was like, okay, let me ask a question.
And that's why all of these say before. All of these, and all of it is the other person before yourself.
Okay.
So all of it's the other person before yourself. And so oftentimes we do it the opposite way.
Okay.
Or we just do the second half.
We want you to understand what I was,
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And understand that it's the fine line with vision, right? I want to give the people a vision, but if I don't know where the people are,
Right. How
Right.
can you give it to them?
how can I give them a vision they connect with?
Right.
Right? Because it's just a wonderful dream
Okay.
that I'm gonna wake up from and be slapped in the face by the reality. Right, exactly. Oh, that sounds good. I mean, you go on, brother. Right. Let me know come back and tell me one day how it went.
How that work out?
But when I know you,
Right.
right, when I took time to understand your fear, and this really kind of goes back to that first initial activity we did about describing the beach. The walk down to the beach. See, when I'm describing my vision, yes, you might be the one who sees it. I need to paint the picture that you can see. But you might be the one that hears it. You might be the one that touches it. You might be the one that you have to tell me the colors. You got to make this thing three-dimensional for me. So I got to incorporate all that when I'm bringing my vision together. I want to incorporate the ability for that to come into being. Right? So like, I might have just took over the group. I might not know you all yet. I might still be working and coming to connect. So I'm going to give a general piece, but in my generalities, I'm going to describe how we all have the opportunity to grow. Right? From where you are to where you want to be. Paint the picture, and as I get to know you more, we're going to fill in the blanks. We're going to fill in what we're trying to
Just
do.
point of understanding each other, right?
Exactly. That's the ultimate point.
That's what I'm.
Right. Because we're talking about connecting, right? Not just communicating. We're talking about getting to know each other. We're talking about building a bridge, right, that we can all cross together. So key concepts: know the reasons you and your listener want to communicate and build a bridge between them. Question: what is the bridge you need to build to connect on common ground? Wow. Now the idea, again, behind all of this stuff is that you're doing this before. That all this is intentional. So maybe you've got to give a speech, or maybe you're sharing your vision, or maybe you're bringing together your team, or maybe you're thinking about the end state. Maybe you're considering where you are in your family and where you want to go, the type of culture you want to build. All those the kind of things. How am I going to communicate that? How am I going to connect? Where is my listener at? Where am I at? How do we come together? What are the methods that we do? Maybe it's the atmosphere that you work in on a regular basis. How do I shift that? How do I change that? How do I build a bridge between me and my boss? Right? If we got a boss that's hard-headed, how do I build that relationship between me and my boss, that we can have that conversation, that we can grow together with? These are the kind of suggestions that will help make that happen, but it's not going to happen by accident. It's something that you're going to have to get some time thinking through and working through. So like on your drives homes and leaving, what are the opportunities you have? Because there will always be opportunities, right? There will always be a way and a place. You just have to, humility, you embrace it, hold it tight, right? But when connecting, others before self. Others before self.
And I just wanted to just grab y'all off of that, is the fact that it's so important, especially when you're coming into a situation, because you don't know where the people are at, particularly in the beginning. So if you're seeking to understand other people, to see what they see or to know what they feel, because you come into an organization and you may be going to be the leader or whatever, and you start, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, but you don't know how they feel about it. Maybe they feel this is real inefficient, or this is whatever, and you don't hear them, or you don't listen to them, or whatever the case may be. I think it's so important. I think really some real serious opportunity before the Lord to really ask God, how do I come in and come out? How do I position myself as, a person who will listen, a person who wants to connect, who wants to better, who wants to be an asset, who wants to be that kind of thing, which we really do, because we want an audience that will see our life and turn to Christ, ultimately, so he can be drawn, ultimately, so that in the midst of, even on our jobs, we still want to be effective for the kingdom. We still want to, have that opportunity to bless him. So, it really takes something to ask, because when it's your way, just I know that I'm going to go on, I'm going to do it my way, I'm going to do what I do, blah, blah, blah. It really takes something to go in and say, Now, how's that work? You know, do you think that's the best way? Is that the most, how's that work? Is that why y'all always done it? Or did y'all just try something new? Is this a new system? So I ask them those questions again, to show that you're interested and really want to know and understand and see what they see.
Any other thoughts? I ain't saying that. No. Okay. Now you turn around and look at me like, you bring it off my mouth. I'm like,
Okay, all right, well, you all have been wonderful tonight. I truly appreciate the opportunity. Y'all give yourselves a round of applause. Okay. So, again, tonight, we did John C. Maxwell, Everybody Communicates When You Connect, and we did session 6, talking about connectors. What was our title? Connectors. Communicators connect on common ground. Communicators connect on common ground. So hopefully you feel more empowered to find the common ground, right, with your people whom you work with and your families who you lead and with yourself, so that you can continue to work. A lot of prayer. A lot of prayer. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right. The next time we'll be together will be the last Thursday of the month. All right. The last Thursday of the month, and we'll be on session 7. Connectors do the difficult work of keeping it simple. Connectors do the difficult work of keeping it simple. In other words, your big words ain't impressing nobody.
come on, big word. That's
To be
right.
simple is to be great by Albert Emerson. Okay, so looking forward to having you all. We'll close with a word of prayer, and then we'll be dismissed. Lord, we thank you for today. We thank each and every person who made their way out today. Thank you for safe traveling mercies, and pray safe travels as we head back home. Lord God, burnish these words into our heart, God, that we would be intentional about being accessible. Lord God, we ask that you would just give healing, God, in every situation where we've been hurt in the past and struggled, Lord God, to be vulnerable now, God. May we be the kind of leaders that reflect Jesus, who, Lord God, even though betrayed, still came back and went to the cross and loved us enough to come back from the grave. Thank you for the opportunity to grow. Thank you for the opportunity to share, and thank you for the opportunity to give you the glory in all things. May we continue to be the leaders you called us to be in every place that we go. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen. All right.